The world superpowers are responsible for us, he says. If they don't help us, Turkey will slaughter us. This man is a Syrian Kurd refugee, one of about 100,000 displaced since Turkish troops and their Syrian rebel supporters began the war. The Turkish offensive is pressing into northeastern Syria and targeting Kurdish forces that Turkey's president says are terrorists. But they were allies of the United States, who helped drive ISIS out of towns and cities and forced the militant group underground. Allies, that is, until Donald Trump pulled American soldiers out of the battle zone, leaving Kurdish fighters to fend for themselves. Ground fighting and airstrikes have killed dozens of people. The concern for Kurds in northern Syria is sparking demonstrations of support around the world and here in Canada as well. The sight of tanks rolling across the border from Turkey and pictures of the death and damage caused by airstrikes is worrying for Kurds everywhere. One rally is being held in Vancouver right now. Mariwan Jaff is a Kurdish Canadian who is one of the organizers of today's protests, and he joins us now. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having us.
I know the protest got underway, I gather, about an hour ago. So first of all, Mariwan, what is the situation like there? Have you got a big crowd?
We have a big crowd. We have about 300 to 400 people. Now we are on the march. We're marching from the Arts Gallery in Vancouver towards 700 Hamilton, which is the CBC buildings in Vancouver.
And what is the message you're carrying?
Our message is to try and to get the Canadian government and the international community to put pressure on the Turkish regime to stop its incursion onto northeast Syria in the area known as Rojava.
I know this is personal for you, and you have friends and family that you are worried about. Have you been able to be in touch with anyone in the region? And if so, what are they telling you?
We have been in touch with friends of friends and families of friends in the Kamishlu area, which is just south of the Turkish border. And the situation there is grave. You know, people, families are worried about the consequences of this Turkish invasion of the area. The families, the women and the elderly and the children are on the move. Going basically from neighborhood to neighborhood, city to a city, and moving toward the Iraqi Kurdistan borders. At the same time, we have there's fierce resistance from the forces of the Syrian Democratic Army, and there has been we have been able to, they have been able to keep the Turkish army at bay.
What are you hearing in terms of where people are fleeing? Because, Mariwan, we're hearing as many as 100,000 people have now been displaced as they try to flee the violence. Help us understand the geography in this part of the world, and will they have safe places to turn to?
Well, the problem with the Turkish attack is, so now they are pretty much landlocked. From the north is the Turkish army. From the west, there's the rebel-held areas, and the south and the southwest, it's the regime-controlled areas, and they are not pro-Kurds by any means. So the only place, safe haven for the population is toward the Iraqi border, which is not safe by itself. There has been, we all know, in 2014, those areas were all under the ISIS control. And there is a resurgence now within the Iraqi Kurdistan and the Iraqi the Iraqi land of resurgence of ISIS. So there's by no any means there's a safe haven for the Kurds.
For their part, as you know, Turkey says that this is a peace operation, that they are liberating Syrian villages from terrorists. What do you say to that?
Well, it's funny to mention that while the SDF forces have had agreed to a security mechanism with both the U.S. and the Turkish forces just prior to this invasion, but it's not by any means a security concern. What Turkey is targeting is the Rojava project. because what is a threat to Turkey is the democratic project that's been happening in northeast Syria, where those regions have been the bastion of democracy, and they have been promoting multi-ethnic, political, religious freedom and tolerance. And there has been a resurgence of the women's feminist movement there as well. Well, 50% of the leadership in that area is compromised from women.
Mary,
that's what threatens the regimes, the nationalist and religious regimes in the region in general, and in particular in Turkey.
Mary, one final thought. I gather that you've got a good crowd there, as you say, several hundred people. If there's one message that you wanted to leave Canadians with today, what would that be?
It would be that at this moment, we have a historical moral responsibility to make our voices, to maximize the Kurdish voices, to stop genocide. The time for action is now. It's not tomorrow. It's not next week. We have to keep the pressure on our government. We have to get in contact with our local MPs and our Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Prime Minister to put pressure on our allies to stop genocides. Allies don't let allies commit genocide. Allies force allies to respect human rights.